Hey everyone, and welcome to Equine Photo School's episode number 43 of the podcast. Today, I'm your host, Oli Moss, and this one's going up on YouTube too. So if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for that. Thanks for subscribing and all that good stuff. Today, we're going to be talking to those that are kind of itching to get started. You haven't quite shot your first event yet. You're wondering what it's going to take, what kind of gear you need, what am I missing, what things haven't I thought of. So this is kind of an episode for you guys that haven't quite gotten started, or maybe you are just starting to dip your toes into that water of shooting events and you're figuring out, oh man, this might be actually profitable. So pretty cool deal. We all like to make a little extra money on the side, or this might become, like it was for me, my full-time income. And I always had a lot of people that asked me, like, oh, what else do you do besides photography? I'm like, nothing. This is enough. Like, I'm making multiple six figures here, so I don't think that I need to do anything else. But for those that are just getting started, that sounds daunting, and I'm not wanting to scare anybody off yet, but just let you know there's like this carrot kind of dangling out there for you. We have a sponsor. It's The Wrangler, Horse and Rodeo News. It's my parents' publication. They've been putting it out since I was born, so forever and ever, as far as I'm concerned. So if you give them the code Equine40, they will give you 40% off. So you just call them up. If you want to advertise, if you're in Wyoming or the surrounding states or their surrounding states, it's going to be a great place for you to advertise. You're going to pick up gigs. You're going to pick up events. You got stuff going on. So advertise your photography services, advertise their events in there. And that's where I found a lot of events when I was getting started. I would just browse through the Wrangler, find somebody's ad. When I was first getting started, I looked for the smaller ads, the quarter page or half page ads. And then as I got better and, got my name out there more, then it was the full page ads, and you go after those guys, because if they're putting a full page ad in somewhere, they're expecting it to be at least a medium size event, right? It doesn't have to be a huge event, but that's great. So if you are advertising in there, people are going to be able to find you. And then if you're browsing through there, you're going to be able to find events and then, reach out to those producers and say, hey, this is me. This is who I am. This is what I do. I'd like to get started. I'm kind of new at this. Do you have any small events on your schedule that don't have a photographer yet? And, go, and then boom, they'll say, yeah, come shoot this one. It's kind of small, might not be worth your time. And you'll say, I just need the practice, really. And so you go out and shoot it. And then what do you know? Bob's your uncle. You're in the business. Advertising is super important, but there's all those other ways to use the Wrangler, to utilize it to your ability. And, it was my parents, and shameless plug here, but hey, you know what? No harm, no foul. Use that code Equine40 to let them know you heard it here on the podcast, and they will give you 40% off your first ad. You heard it here. So let's get into some gear, because that's what you're all here for, is talking about the gear. If you're like me, you love the gear. You can see I've got some on my shelf here, my shelf there. You should see my garage, because it is jam-packed full of photography gear still. I've got a whole loft. Anyway, that's besides the point. I got a little carried away, and I bought so much photography gear is unreasonable. And I was packing it around in a 45-foot fifth wheel, and it just it became a lot at the end of it. But we're not here to talk about how I ended. We're going to talk about more like how I started. And I think that you're going to go through here this very short list of gear that I have up on the screen here, and I'm going to talk to you about each piece and how it helps you. And first things first, you're going to need a camera, and you probably already have a camera. But if you don't have a camera, okay, if you're going to shoot events, you need a camera. If it's your iPhone and you can convince somebody to buy those pictures, great, then more power to you. But I think you're going to need at least a real, quote unquote, real camera, or a dedicated camera. If you have something like an entry-level camera, whether it's an old Rebel DSLR or a mirrorless, and if you haven't bought a camera yet, I would strongly suggest go mirrorless. Even if you have to go on eBay or something, or Adorama or B&H and find a used one, or go to your local camera store, see if somebody's traded one in. The mirrorless is the way to go from here on out. So if you're new to photography, don't get a DSLR, okay? because it's just going to cost you money. You're going to have to trade lenses and you're going to have to switch over to a whole new system shortly anyway. So you might as well just start mirrorless. Canon manufacturers are not making new DSLR bodies anymore. Okay, so get a mirrorless camera, get an entry-level one, and just to get started, because I don't want to see you invest a ton of money in this right away, because you might not like it. It's not for everybody. So if you go through this list, you're not going to spend a ton of money, and you're going to be able to kind of get your feet wet and kind of experience how this operates, right? Okay, so get yourself an extra battery for that camera too, because some of these events are really long and you're going to shoot a lot of pictures and it's going to drain that battery. Especially the older mirrorless cameras, they really struggled with battery life. The newer ones are getting much better, but those older ones, just pick up another battery. Do not get the knockoff batteries though. This is a budget list, but get the right battery, because those cause problems. Weird problems. I've had it like wipe out a memory card and destroy it, and I've had other problems too, and they're just garbage. So it doesn't pay to be cheap. So go ahead and get like the brand name battery, okay? Because it's important, okay? And then extra memory cards, try to have at least 5. I would say that's a minimum, okay? In my system, I've talked about it here on YouTube, and I've talked about it in the podcast. In my system, we trade that card around, and there, you just format it and start over fresh. But it goes to the booth and it goes back and forth, and you're going to need extra cards. So I had dozens of extra cards, those big CF cards. But if you have SD cards, they're cheaper, they're smaller. And if you're shooting an entry-level camera, that's probably what it takes. They're pretty cheap. So buy several of those. You're going to need several, okay? At least just start with 5. That'll probably get you going. Then you're going to need a lens of some kind. So if you already have a kit lens that came with your body, great. That's probably okay to get started and kind of get you somewhere. But an all-in-one zoom lens. So if you have something like, I think Tamron has one that's 16 to like 400 millimeters or something like that. It has a big old range on it, and that means you can shoot really wide stuff and you can zoom way in. So if you're shooting action sports, being able to zoom way in is important. It's going to get you closer to the action. It's going to, bring that all into context. Now, those aren't great lenses, and professionals, eventually you're going to upgrade that lens. And I'm not saying this is like, it's a beginner's thing, right? So we're beginners here, and go for the beginner lens and get that all-in-one zoom. It'll treat you. It'll be good enough for what we're doing, and it'll get you by until you can afford something better, okay? Then get yourself a clipboard. Clipboards are cheap. You can get one. You probably have one if you went to college or whatever. Maybe you already have a clipboard hanging around. Dig around, ask around, go to a garage sale. I don't know. You can probably find one for 50 cents. But you need some way to write down, okay, and a pen. So pick up a pen somewhere. I'm sure you shop your house first. I'm always talking about this on the podcast and stuff. Like, I learned this from Becky and Chris on YouTube. But shop your house is this term where we just go around our house and we find things that will suit our new thing that we're trying to do. So like Becky, she redecorates her house all the time, and she goes around shopping her other rooms for things that might look good in this room or whatever. But basically that's what I did when I started. I was in college. I already had a laptop. I already had a TV. I would go to my living room and just unplug the TV and take it with me, and my roommates were stuck without a TV. Guess what? It's my TV. You guys can go outside and play, whatever. I would just take the TV with me, and that would be what I used in the booth. And I shot my own house, so I didn't have to buy a special TV just for this photography thing, because, it wasn't super profitable in the beginning. And even the first day. So I'm telling you about equipment I had on the very first day of this job. I had a camera for about a week, okay? So I'd actually, to do this blog post, just a little backstory, I found a packing list that I used to use in my notes app in my phone. I just scrolled way to the bottom, and there it was. So I thought, I'm going to make an episode about this packing list that I got here. So I'm going to tell you about some things, okay? You're going to need some self-sealing envelopes. Now, these are really cheap. You peel off the thing, you fold it over, it's self-adhesive. You take the memory card out and you put it in there, and you write what it is on there and send it to the booth. I've had so many cards get destroyed because before we'd use this this envelope system, and these envelopes, like a box is like $5 for 100 of them or something. So you can afford to get a box of envelopes to save your $35 memory card from getting destroyed, or $50 or $100 memory card, whatever it is. Plus all the pictures on that memory card, if it does get destroyed, like they're destroyed too, and then you didn't get to make those sales. So that costs you a lot of money if that little memory card gets destroyed, or falls in the dirt, whatever. Your booth crew, we're going to talk about in a second, they're not always the most dependable people, and they don't always understand like the value of this little card. So if you put an envelope for them and seal it, it gets there safely. Okay, it gets to the booth safely. Okay, you're gonna need a chair of some kind. If you're the official photographer at these events, you're gonna want to sit down probably. There's very seldom, unless you're doing like rodeo stuff where you're running around all over. If you're doing an event like team roping, barrel racing, anything like that, breakaway, calf roping, you name it, all those things, you're just going to need a chair. You're going to want to sit down in one spot, pick your spot, sit there and shoot, okay? I would get a cooler for that to sit next to the chair. I would get a big cooler that has wheels personally. It's not expensive, like $25-$30. Those little $10 coolers, I had a little bitty one. I wish I still had it because it'd be funny in these videos. But it was good enough. Like I had a low chair and I set my clipboard on top of that because it was flat. So I would get yourself a cooler that has a flat top, and you can use it double as like a side table to your chair to put your clipboard on. And you got your little pens, and I love these pens. These are from Pilot, the G2s. I'm sure everybody knows what those pens are. They write really good. I get the big bold blue. Oh, here. I get blue ones because when you get a bigger booth, this system can fluctuate, bigger, smaller. We take copies of the pagers, right? We get the draw from the producer, and we'll make a copy of it, and so we know which one's the original if one has blue ink on it and the rest are black and white. Okay, so blue ink is what I use. That's it for camera gear, right? And like the photographer's gear, like what you use as a photographer. Now, I'm going to catch a lot of flack for this, I know it, but that's okay. Having a booth is going to be critical to your success. I can't tell you how many photographers have been doing this for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. They come at me and they say they can't afford a booth crew yet. And I'm here to tell you that you got it backwards, okay? You can't afford not to have a booth, okay? The affording the booth comes after you hire the people in the booth, not before. Not before. You don't get to like some magical level to where now you can afford the luxury of having a booth crew. It is not a luxury, my friends. It is a necessity, okay? It is a necessity. I'm going to repeat that because it's important. Having a booth crew does so much for you. And I'm not talking you have to hire 15 full-time employees on day one, okay? Here's what I'm telling you. I'm telling you, call your friend, okay? Text them because this is modern times. We text our friends and say, hey, will you come help me? I need help. And your friends are going to be your friends, and they're going to say, I'm all in, And they just say, tell me what to do and I'll do it. And that's a good friend right there, okay? So you're going to go to your friend, you're going to ask for some help, and you're going to show them this little system that you've created, or follow my system. I've posted about it before. And if you need help, let me know, because like, hey, that's what we're here for at Equine Photo School, okay? But we're going to walk through this little system here today, and this is critical. This is one of those things that we're going to get all this gear. We're talking about gear. We're gearheads, but all this gear makes a system when we put it all together in a certain way, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to get your friend, and you're going to show them kind of the ropes and tell them what to do. And listen, I did this on my very first day at my very first event. I had one of my friends come and help me, and you know what? We made more money after I paid her, more money than I did in the last 40 hours of work at my real job. I made about $50 or $100 more, and I'd only work for 8 hours instead of 40 hours. So I'm telling you, the math works out really good here, okay? But that friend is going to need a laptop or a computer of some kind. I bring this huge iMac with me everywhere I go. I have a rolling case for it, but this is minimum gear, okay? So you probably already have a laptop. If you don't, Go get yourself a laptop. But I like when I started this, I was in college, so I used the laptop that I was doing homework with, and I just took it with me. And then get your TV out of your living room or a spare TV if you've got a spare TV, and throw it up under your arm. Walk out the door with it. Go throw it in the back of the truck. Take it to the event. Okay, take it there. Bring the HDMI cable. You probably already have one of those too, and hook up that laptop to your TV. Now, you might need an adapter depending on the laptop you've got. These new MacBook Pros, I have a little adapter that adapts the USB-C to HDMI. It was like $10, $20. I don't know. It's cheap, whatever. Okay. That way you can show people their pictures on a nice big screen. You look more professional. They see your pictures bigger and better. They don't say, well, they say less often, can you blow this up to an 8x10? I say no, but I can shrink it down to an 8x10 because, we have high megapixel cameras here. But that's beside the point, right? So get yourself a TV, an HDMI cable, hook it up to the computer. Jeez. And practice before the event starts. Practice hooking up all this stuff. Practice setting up a booth in your garage if you've got one. All this stuff is going to help you, right? So you're going to also need a printer, right? A printer came with my little kit when I first got my first camera. It came with a Canon Pro 100, right? I had a 70D. It just happened to be a package deal, and it worked out that I had a printer, right? It came with it, right? It cost me money somewhere, I'm sure, but basically you get yourself a printer, you get yourself an extra bundle of ink or two. Like that one took 8 different cartridges of ink, so I had at least one extra thing of ink, a pack of ink, and some paper. You're gonna need some photo paper to print on. 5x7, 8x10, and 11x14 are the core. Like I sell more of those than anything else. The 11x14s are a little bit less, so if you gotta scrap one of them, if you can only afford to have a pack of 5x7 and a pack of 8x10, great. That is your bare minimum. Okay, 11x14, it's nice to have, especially for those people that are like, oh my God, this is my first what or whatever, right? Their little darling daughter did something special. They gotta have a bigger picture of it. Okay, you want to be able to accommodate those people. Okay. The next thing is clear bags for these, okay? I've started out using manila envelopes because that's what Walmart had, but if you can plan ahead a little bit, go to Amazon, search for clear bags for an 8x10 or clear bags for a 13x19. That's how big my printer prints. Whatever it is, okay? I have ones for 5x7s and 8x10s. They're really cheap, guys. We're talking like 100 of them for a couple bucks. And prime shipping if you're get on Amazon, but whatever. They're like food grade. They have a little thing that you peel off and then fold the flap over so it seals. So if you're shooting in the rain or the dust or the dirt or whatever, like we all do all the time, then you can seal that up so the pictures aren't falling out. Your business card's not falling out. You need a business card. We're getting to that. Your customers aren't going to destroy those images by accident, right? By getting them wet or something. Okay, you're gonna be able to seal that up. It's not gonna cost you a dang thing to seal them up because they're self-sealing. Envelopes are so good. Okay, you're gonna need a table to set all this stuff on. So just go to Walmart if you don't already have a table. I grabbed my card table that I had. I'd bought it years before I started all these images. It was like a little card table, like a 3.5 square, and it came with 4 chairs, and they were flimsy and they were junk, but you know what? I already owned them, so I wasn't going to go buy new stuff when I was just getting started, and you shouldn't either. Shop your house. Find a table and some chairs that you've got laying around. Throw them in the truck. Let's go, okay? The next thing is you're going to need some cash. So I always started with $200 in starting cash, small bills, 20s, 10s, and 5s. I did everything in increments of 5, but if you have stuff where there's ones, if you need ones, you need ones, okay? So make sure that you've got change for people, and then make sure you have a nice bag that goes in or somewhere to store that cash. So a bank bag is cheap. You can go get one at the dollar store for $1, okay? It just needs to be a flat little bag. It's super easy. Pens. We talked about pens. You need some pens for the booth too. That's really important. Then you're going to need some order books. Now I get these from Walmart. I've ordered them on Amazon too, so if you don't have a Walmart nearby, but if you just go to the office supply section in Walmart, your dreams will come true. You can build a whole booth from Walmart. I've done it lots of times. We used to go to Walmart almost every event because it was like, oh, we are out of this or that or whatever. Um, it was like a midnight run all the time to Walmart. That got old really fast, okay? But you can get these order books. I just get a duplicate. I don't think triplicate is important. I keep a copy of the receipt and the customer gets a copy. If you're shooting outside, which you probably are at your first events, you're going to need like a pop-up, like an easy up tent, like a canopy is what they call it sometimes, or a tailgate tent or whatever. I've heard a million different names of these things, but they basically just have 4 legs that are 10 by 10 and they just raise up with a roof on it and 4 sides. And one of the sides usually has a door. Personally, I would suggest buying a black one. Now, I know that it's hot in the summer, but white is hot in the summer too. Trust me, I've had white ones and they're god awful hot, just as hot as the black ones. But what the problem is people are trying to look at a screen, and those screens have glare if you use any color but black. And even black isn't that great because you got to have at least a door open and whatever. But like I had a 20 by 20 and it was extremely heavy duty and it was like $4,000. And it was great. Like, you got to have it. Like, this is important stuff if you're shooting outside. So I very rarely shot outside, but when I did, I knew I was going to be making a lot of money then, and it made sense for me to do that. I just want you to go and buy like $100 one or a $200 tops, right? Don't spend a ton of money on this right away. Eventually, you're going to upgrade this tent like everything else on this list. Everything except for probably the pens, they're really good. But everything else, everything's going to get upgraded at some point or another. Your chair, your camera, all of it, right? Then I want you to get some business cards. It's important. It's like $10 for a pack of business cards. So just don't buy a ton of them and don't get fancy. Okay? I've been working with one of my friends lately and building her business cards, and man, she's getting fancy. But you don't. I don't want you to. You just buy as many as you can, as cheap as you can, and just hand them out to everybody. Everybody gets your card. Put it in an order. Hand it to people. Have some in your back pocket whenever somebody walks by. Somebody comes up and asks you for pictures. Boom. Yep, here's my card. There's my booth. Just that easy. Keep it moving, okay? Then, what nobody ever talks about is extension cords, okay? You need extension cords, and do not go cheap. If you go cheap on extension cords, eventually you are going to have a bad day. Okay, it is going to ruin your weekend if you have cheap crap. So I always get 12 gauge extension cords. I don't get anything smaller than that. The bigger the extension cord, the more power it can take and the less voltage drop. And I know the electricians in the crowd will help me out here. So comment below if you know everything about extension cords. If you get anything less than a 12 gauge, you're going to have a problem eventually, right? Not right away, but eventually you're going to put too much stuff on there. It's going to burn up the cord. It might burn up your computer. You might have some other problems. So, that's what I do. I have 2 or 3 like 8 gauge that are really big, really heavy duty when I need to run a longer distance or when I need to power more stuff or whatever. Okay. So I will have some of those, but that comes later. Okay. Just get yourself a couple of 12 gaugers so that you can run power to your booth and power this TV, laptop, printer, all that stuff. Okay, really important. So that pretty much takes care of the photography side and the booth side, and those things marry together. If you're listening to this in the future, probably go check out the booth course. I'm planning on doing one very soon. If you're listening to this in real time, we are like early March 2022, okay, when this thing comes out. So you're gonna take your basic kit, and you're going to go and get an event, and you probably already, have some contacts, or if you don't, like I said, go search through the Wrangler or other magazines in your niche and try to find events that you might want to shoot and talk to them people and just talk to people and ask nicely, and be humble and, that sort of thing. And you're going to get some gigs. Okay. It's pretty easy, really. There's a ton of really small events that no photographer would bother with that's trying to make money at this, trying to make a living with, and you can get those and you can use that as practice, okay? Like I practiced on one that was just happened to be at my parents' house a week after I bought my camera because my parents talked me into doing it, and look at me now, right? So, that was a little one that no other photographer wanted to shoot, and, so I just shot it because nobody else wanted it, and I was their son, so I guess I got it, right? But if you don't have that luxury, which you probably don't, then just do what I said. Go and look, go and find, network, go on social media, whatever, but reach out to these people that are producing these events, or go to your local fairgrounds or find arenas in your neighborhood. There's a ton of ways, and I've talked about it on other episodes of this podcast about finding an event and getting your feet wet and stepping into event photography, okay? So there's a ton of ways to do it. Let's talk about some nice things that would be just, a little cush, a little bit extra that are still pretty basic, okay? One of them is a banner, right? If you don't know this about me yet, you should now. You're going to find out because I plaster my name on everything. Look at my hat right here. If you're listening to the podcast, sorry. But my hat here says Equine Photo School, right? I'm usually wearing an Equine Photo School shirt. I just didn't today. But it's, you know what I mean? Like I'm looking at these screens, and even on my own screens that only I see, it says Equine Photo School on it, right? So everything, my shirts had Ollie's images on the back. My caps had Ollie's images. I didn't wear caps shooting in the arena, hat or no hat. My chest had a little, like right here, I got official photographer. Still got one of these patches left that I didn't even get put on a shirt yet. But banners, guys, banners are cheap. I think they were $50 or $100. I just looked on Banners on the Cheap yesterday. $75 for a banner shipped to your house. Okay, I get the mesh ones because if you're shooting outside, it's going to be windy, and the solid ones, they have too much resistance and they'll tear. The mesh ones are heavier duty. They'll last longer. There might be a little bit extra money, but it's worth it. Okay, it's worth it. Make sure you put your logo everywhere. Put your brand name everywhere. Come up with something. Call it Your Name Photography or Your Name Images or whatever. Need simple. Ollie's Images is what I use for my company, as you know. And that lasted me the whole time. And I thought about changing it a ton of times, but who cares? It's just a name. It's no big deal. But print it everywhere. Put it everywhere. The more people see it, the more they are likely to remember it. Beat them over the head with it. I've had people sit at my desk and ask me, who should I make this check out to? And I look at, I'm like, there's a 4x8 banner 3 feet from your face. That's who you make out the banner or the check to. But I put it on everything. So get business cards, get banners, get signage, get stickers, whatever. Put your stuff, your information everywhere so people remember who you are. Okay. The next thing is this umbrella with a clamp. Now, I'll put a link to it on Amazon here below, but I found this really cool sport umbrella a long time ago when I used to shoot events outside, which has been a long time because at the end of my career, I had quit shooting events outside about 3 years ago, except for 1 or 2 that were big enough that still justified me being there. But a long, long, long time ago, when I was first getting started, I looked on Amazon for like some kind of chair umbrella or whatever. I don't know what I searched for, but I found an umbrella with a clamp on it, and this umbrella had like arms on it so you could adjust it like an elbow, and then it swiveled too, so I could always turn it so that it blocked the sun, and it wasn't very big, so it didn't take up a lot of like wind resistance, and then I can have it up for longer, and it was supposed to be good for like some crazy like 50-mile-an-hour wind or something. But it was really nice to have. And I bought several of those because they were so good. I just want to make sure all of my crew had them. And then if one broke or something happened to it, I had a backup. But eventually, you'll get to that point. But get yourself an umbrella with some kind of clamp so you can clamp it to your chair or to the fence or something to shade you, because like I've had skin cancer. It sucks. And I don't want you to get skin cancer, and I don't want you to like get sunburned or whatever. So you got to treat yourself nice. This isn't a punishment. You shouldn't, be out there trying to beat yourself up. So it's a nice to have. It's not critical for getting started. But if you're going to do it very often, I would do it. Okay. I would suggest strongly. Okay. The other thing that is a nice to have is ice packs. I get these ones called BioShock. I think they are Cooler Shock. I don't know why I always want to call them BioShock. They're Cooler Shock ice packs, and they are so good. I still have like 8 of them or 10 of them today, and I use them all the time. I love the weirdest stuff. I realized just now, but I love these ice packs. They last forever. I've had them like freeze water bottles. Like I've taken a water bottle that's like room temperature, threw it in my cooler with some other water bottles, whatever, and it'll freeze all of the water bottles that are touching it. And you go to pull it out there, and it's a solid chunk of ice, and you're still thirsty. So, uh, put put a couple in there so there's not some that are directly touching it, and those you can drink first. Okay, the tent weights is what I have on here. So they wrap around the legs of the tent and they hold the tent down because wind. There's this thing called wind. I'm sure most of you have experienced it, and it's awful. It'll suck your tent into the next county real quick. Those little pop-up tents aren't very good, and it will. These weights aren't going to be the best thing, and they're not going to hold down anything in any conditions. But if if it gets really windy, you might have to shut down or something. You might have to do something else. But a slight breeze, you don't want that affecting your business. So get some tent bags, some tent weights, and put those on your legs right when you set up the tent. Don't wait for it to get windy, because by then it's too late. Sandbags are the other thing that I use them for everything. I use them to prop open a door. I use them to weight things down, weight down my tripod, weight down my chair so it doesn't blow over when I'm not sitting in it. Just whatever. The sandbags are totally useful, and you can get them on Amazon, the cheapy ones that I don't like them that much, but they are effective. They're useful for a while. They're like $14 for a 2-pack or something like that. So they're $7 a pop, and you just fill them up with dirt. You just shovel in your own dirt, or I got some like kidney beans or something and put those in there, and I like that a little bit better because the dirt, it doesn't have like a layer to seal the dirt in. So I bought some expensive ones that are double bagged, come with their dirt already in them, and they are the cat's meow as far as sandbags go. But they were like $40, so each. So I wouldn't buy those if I was just starting out. I just buy the cheap ones, and they'll get you by, right? Like, I still have a bunch of the cheap ones. I have some cheap ones that I haven't even filled up yet because I bought them, and then short before I could even start using them, I decided to buy real good sandbags. So I still have some that are flat and unused that I should just give away. The next thing is a monopod. Now, a monopod is kind of nice. It's like one of those things that's like, is this more pain than it's worth? I'm not sure. So it depends on how you're shooting your events and what you're doing. Eventually, I would like to see everybody get up to a tripod with a gimbal head on it and a longer lens. These all-in-one lenses that we're talking about here, they're not going to go on a gimbal head. Okay, so you're not going to get to use that. You're just going to pick it up and hold it. But if you've got an extra $50 or $100 and you want to spend it on something, a monopod is a pretty good choice. It's pretty good. It's not the greatest thing. I don't really love monopods personally, but when you're just getting started, it's okay. It'll be okay. It's not the greatest and best invention in the whole world, but hey, when you're just getting started, you get what you get. So what I did is this camera that's mounted here, this tripod that's on this camera, it actually has a leg that detaches and becomes a monopod. So I bought this, like, this is one of my very first tripods ever, and it's still here in studio. It doesn't move from this spot ever, but it's still being used. It still holds the camera and does its thing, but the leg comes off and it becomes a monopod. So if you get one of those, this one is like a Be-Free or something like that, or some, I don't know, it's some cheap knockoff brand, but it's really nice to have that kind of flexibility and capability. And if you already have a tripod, then great, you can use that. Like, I've used like a ball head and put it on, like, just loosen it a little bit so it swivels. That's kind of okay, but you're always having to fiddle with it. Go and watch my other stuff when I talk about tripods and monopods and handheld and which I prefer and when. I made other videos on that already, so I'm not going to deep dive on that. But basically, that's it. So that's what I would do. Like, I know that kind of sounds like not minimal equipment, right? Like, the minimum equipment is a camera and a lens, right? And a memory card and a laptop. If you've got that, you can go and do it, right? Like, that's it. But everybody's got that figured out, okay? Right? I'm sure you didn't come here for me to tell you that you need a camera and a laptop or some kind of computer, right? And a memory card and a lens. I know that. So I added all this other stuff in here because it helped me. It helped me create this business from the start, and I was profitable day one, man. I mean, it was like easy, and it let's not say it was easy, but man, it sure made life better. And it quickly realized that I could make much more than what I was making at my real job doing this. So I had approximately this year to start with. I had some other stuff on this list like camera bag or whatever. Sure, you're gonna have to have that eventually, I guess. Um, but it's not necessary. A camera bag isn't necessary to shoot. It's necessary to protect your stuff. But um, start out with a booth though, because starting out with the booth, I had a booth crew on day one. I had a friend that came and helped me, and she's super nice about it. And I paid her, I think, $10 an hour or something. I didn't know what to pay anybody, and inflation. Maybe you pay people better now, but um, having one person that can help you in the booth and that is dedicated, not a contestant. I never hire contestants. I have a rule against such things, because a contestant is thinking primarily about their event and their horse and what they're going to do, to compete. And you're kind of like second on the list. And if your booth is slammed with customers and they're going to run and they're up in 50 runs, then they're going to go warm up their horse and not sell pictures for you. So hire a dedicated friend that is just going to be there to help you, right? And they don't care about whatever event it is. They're not there to watch. They're not there to coach. Tell your friends, this is not Oli's coaching business. This is Oli's images. Okay, whatever. You obviously enter in your own terms there, but man, I've had some real wingdingers work for me. But basically, if you can get somebody that is there to help you and your friend, and you pay them to be there, you're going to make way more money than if you try to go at this alone and you try to just halfway do it, and you try to just upload pictures later to Facebook and let people message you if they want them. We haven't even talked about a website yet, but a website is super critical here. It's not gear, whatever. I use Zenfolio. If you want Zenfolio, use the code equine40, all caps, no spaces, and that's 40. You're going to get 40% off your like pro or advanced plan, whatever it is. They're top tier plans. So a website is super important, and it's nice. It's a really, really nice to have. But if you have a booth, you're going to be able to take care of 70 or 80% of your sales at a booth versus online, where you're only going to capture the people that, like, online, they got to remember to go to your website. And then when they go, if they go and the pictures aren't uploaded yet, they're just going to leave and they probably won't come back. And then if if all you're doing is uploading to your website, you got to get that website in people's minds or somehow out to them. But if you got a booth there, they just walk by because they're walking around bored, and after they ran, but they still got to wait until their next run or whatever, they're going to walk around, they're going to find your booth, or their buddy's going to tell them, hey, the photographer's got a booth over there. Why don't we go see if we got any pictures or whatever? And so it's much, much easier for people to buy at a booth, and the easier you can make it on your customers to buy your stuff, the more likely they are to do it. That makes sense? Man, I get so much flack on having a booth and pushing do a booth, but I've done it both ways, people. I've done it without a booth, and it sucks. Man, you get used to making all this money with a booth, and then you go and shoot an event and not set up a booth for whatever reason, laziness, or I've been where I flew in and I still had a booth set up because I borrowed a table and a chair, and then I just showed on my laptop, which sucked, and I didn't have my printer, which sucked. I made a lot less money. I would have made 2 or 3 times as much money if I would have been able to print on site and show on my big TVs. I know because I've done the same exact event the previous year, and I made 3 times as much as I did when I had to fly in and shoot it. I've done it. I've done it to where, I had all of my stuff there, but I just didn't bother to set it up and was like, oh, whatever. I'm just going to try to not have a crew and see how it goes. The amount of sales I got was like almost zero. Like, it was so bad compared to what you usually get. I mean like overhead, everything, all your expenses included. Okay. I'm talking net income here. Your net income is so much better when you have a booth that operates smoothly with people that want to be there. Okay. I've had some booth crews that have been really miserable too, and people that sit there with their hood over their head and they don't want to talk to your customers, and they look like this, and arms crossed, and they won't make eye contact, they won't say hi, they won't do anything. I've had people like that work for me, and they don't work for me after that, you do that to my customers and you're out of here, buddy. I want my people to be happy and smile, and I treat them well, and I make sure they're fed and make sure they get bathroom breaks and water and whatever. Like, make sure that they're taking care of themselves, just like I'm telling you to take care of yourself, right? Like, your booth crew, you keep them happy, they'll keep your customers happy. Okay? That's how it works. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. So have a good booth crew. This is the bare minimum equipment. I'm going to list it below in the blog post and all that stuff. So go check this video out on YouTube if you're listening to the podcast. If you're on YouTube, go listen to the podcast. There's some good stuff over there. That's it. Sayonara. See you later. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Toodaloo.